A century ago, after the awakening, spiritual energy became the most important energy in this world. With the increase of spiritual energy, beings evolved in two directions. One direction was a return to primal instincts, which increased physical energy. The other direction was spiritual mutation, which focused on energy attacks. People in this world also developed various spiritual energy professions within spiritual energy. Spiritual beast expert, 37 million subscribers. Spiritual material analyst, 39 million subscribers. Guy read the answers to the questions of these geniuses. For example, a guy wondered, what to do if you are bitten by a ghostly, shadowy, spiny spider? To which the expert replied that if you are a professional, you need a good spiritual being, and recommended ordering everything you need now for only $99,998, and then a person could get a super chance to own a premium treasure. In fact, it was just a native advertisement, where the so-called expert offered to buy something from him under the guise of answering questions. However, the white-haired guy who was lying on the bed thought that none of this mattered to him. It also said that not after being bitten by this spider, a person should not panic, drink more hot water, and rest in a ventilated room so that the body would not start to rot. The cat next to him began to complain that he was too hot. He reiterated once more for the guy that he was incredibly hot. The cat's name was Smart, and he was a subspecies of Baeksun beast. When Smart climbed on top of the guy's head, Lin Yuan inquired what Smart was doing. The cat admitted that he had heard that it was cooler where it was higher up. A slightly disgruntled Lin Yuan noted that Smart didn't go much higher. Then the cat reached for the window and tried to open it. At the same instant, a powerful wind blew into the room. The guy immediately moved away from the window, and the cat asked him to remember to take his medicine. Lin Yuan informed him that he knew about it. The white-haired guy's name is Lin Yuan. He is 18 years old, and he is the owner of a small store of spiritual beings. Although people in this world can use spiritual energy to promote the growth of beings, it all seems like a fantasy or fairy tale to him. Lin Yuan has been weak since he was a child. Starting from the age of 8, he couldn't sense the existence of spiritual energy at all, couldn't improve his physical form using spiritual energy like others. He couldn't contact high-level spiritual beings. Lin Yuan and Smart looked at the lily. This plant belonged to ordinary low-level spiritual beings. Lin Yuan regretfully noticed that using cloth to create shade still didn't work. The weather was too hot, and he was finding a good way to cool down the lily. Smart sadly noted that the lily had practically wilted already. Lin Yuan was well aware that as a lowest-level medicinal plant, it was too weak to survive on its own, and was even inferior to the green vine they used as fodder. In the world after the awakening of spiritual energy, all spiritual beings have differences in level and quality. All beings below the bronze level were considered low-level beings. Practically no one wanted to waste resources cultivating low-level spiritual beings, because compared to them, high-level spiritual beings evolved much easier. In addition, in the past 100 years, no one had ever heard of Baeksun beast's evolution. Just at this moment, Yin Yin, a subspecies of sound bird, flew up to him with a medicine in its beak. The guy thanked Yin Yin for his concern. With a body as weak as Lin Yuan's, signing a contract with low-level spiritual beings such as Smart and Yin Yin caused him to feel dizzy for half a month. So he could say little about his perception of the spiritual energy that contributed to their growth and level increase. A little while later, Lin Yuan and Smart were lazily bored in the store, being behind the counter and waiting for customers. Smart couldn't help but wonder if people really liked sleeping at home at this time of day and why the streets were so empty today. Looking at him unhappily, Lin Yuan remarked that he didn't understand what kind of nonsense he was talking about. The guy started shouting that the blue radishes were growing excellently today. He was trying to attract some customers. Just at that moment, a mother and her daughter passed by his store. The daughter noticed that there was a Baeksun beast in the shop, exactly the same as the cat she was holding in her arms. A strained smile appeared on Smart's muzzle as he greeted passers-by and asked if they wanted to buy some radishes. The glowing cat declared that the Baeksun beast representative in front of her had completely dry hair, and that she could immediately see that he was an unwanted commodity that definitely couldn't compare to her. Smart was deeply hurt by the words said to her. He couldn't believe that she even dared to say such a thing to him. Besides, since she was so sure of herself, he was suggesting that she solve everything through rock, paper, scissors. They were surprised at such a strange suggestion from Smart. Taking Smart in his arms and petting him a bit, Lin Yuan advised him not to get angry. Especially, he pointed out that Smart's plan to play rock, paper, scissors looked like a failure since the cat had paws. So he suggested we go for a walk. Still disgruntled, the cat asked what would happen to the store if they went for a walk and left it unattended. The guy was already closing up store, noting that it was okay, since they weren't doing well with their trade today anyway. Smart lit up at the idea, suggesting that the guy buy some meat today. He convinced himself that if he ate a few more pieces of pork, he would definitely get smarter. Then he certainly wouldn't lose to anyone. Soon they went for a walk. Flying beside them, Yin Yin advised Smart not to be sad. He noted that Smart may not be as smart as other Baishan beasts, but it cost much less than the others. Tears appeared in Smart's eyes as he felt that Yin Yin had only made things worse with his words. Closing his eyes, Lin Yuan sighed, for things could have been different if only he could sense spiritual energy. At this moment, Smart shouted for him to look to his left. Turning to his left, the guy noticed a dumb armored pig running at him. He couldn't understand why such a creature could appear near the park. The guy even speculated that something might have happened at the farm. Upon seeing the armor pig, Smart simply lost his mind. Saliva flowed from his mouth, and he tried to jump on Armor Pig with shining eyes. As he did so, he shouted that 50 tons of pork stew had arrived. However, Lin Yuan managed to intercept him, noting that Smart would not be able to defeat Armor Pig. Armor Pig glared at them in fury. Lin Yuan was surprised that the pig was furious. He knew very well that such Armor Pig were very gentle spiritual beings. Based on this logic, even Smart's behavior shouldn't have angered the pig. Therefore, the guy was completely unaware of what was even happening right now. The guy rushed to run away from the Armor Pig, but after a moment he felt tired. Today had exhausted him more than usual. Smart was worried about the guy's health, wondering if he was all right. Suddenly, Lin Yuan twisted his right leg. He immediately started falling on the pavement, causing the cat to be worried. Yin Yin assumed a fighting stance, promising to protect the guy. Smart also took an aggressive stance, intending to try the pork stew today. Lin Yuan tried not to lose consciousness and wanted to tell Smart and Yin Yin to flee. However, he suddenly noticed that everything around him was colored black and white. He was completely unaware of where he was and what was happening. At the same instant, he heard someone calling his name. Turning around, he noticed a giant bronze bracelet in front of him. He was surprised, even assuming it was the same bracelet. He had lost such a bronze bracelet when he was 8 years old. As soon as his blood touched the bronze bracelet disappeared. Suddenly, he felt the energy emanating from the bracelet descend upon him. He felt that spiritual energy that he hadn't been able to feel since he was 8 years old suddenly became palpable. In the same instant, he regained consciousness and tried to catch his breath, and a bronze wrist bracelet appeared on his right hand. No longer so formidable, but a frightened Smart ran past the guy, glad that he was awake. Yin Yin asked the guy to think of something faster. After all, at this moment, Armor Pig was already about to crush the frightened Smart. The guy hopelessly remarked that even with the bit of spiritual energy he had obtained, he still wouldn't have time to do anything. At this moment, his right eye shone with golden energy, and he looked at Armor Pig. Now he could see the information he needed about the creature in front of him. Spiritual creature name, unknown. Species, Armor Pig. Level, common level 3. Type, defense. Quality, common. Unfortunately, Smart and Yin Yin didn't even have level 1. Lin Yuan shouted for Smart to dodge as the pig would attack from the right. The frightened cat was still trying to fight for its life. The guy was well aware that almost nothing had changed for them in this battle, as the gap in the levels of his beasts against the pig was too big. Glancing at the bronze bracelet on his wrist, the guy mentally stated that he needed more strength. He hoped that if only the bronze bracelet was the spiritual being he had contracted with. Yin Yin tried to attack the pig with a sonic attack and told the pig not to touch Smart. At that moment, he noticed that the same light as from the bronze bracelet was coming from Yin Yin. He was surprised, assuming that maybe his beasts were about to evolve. The guy could only think that it was all because of the power emanating from the bronze bracelet. The pig at this point began to yell exhaustively. Smart didn't understand why the pig's voice was getting louder than Yin Yin's. However, Lin Yuan thought for the umpteenth time during this fight that everything was useless. Even if Smart and Yin Yin were on the verge of evolution, the gap between the first and third level was still too big. Therefore, the guy started to think about the pig's weaknesses. Smart and Yin Yin continued to frighteningly run away from the pig. Smart thought that the pig was too strong. Yin Yin asked Lin Yuan for help, as he didn't understand what they should do. Lin Yuan ordered him to start singing so that the pig would be distracted. In order to do this, Yin Yin must sing loud enough. Realizing the plan, Yin Yin decided to try what the guy told him and started chirping as loud as possible. Plugging his ears, the guy was glad that he had over 400 practice sessions before. The pig was simply furious. Yin Yin had angered the pig so much that it targeted him. Now trying to escape from the pig, Yin Yin was puzzled that did he really try to attack the pig just so Smart could take a break. The guy then ordered him to go back and attack the pig's eyes. Since according to his plan then, the pig would stop because it would go blind. Yin Yin decided to follow his advice, but suddenly noticed that he could no longer use anything. In the same instant, the guy fell to his knees and realized that his spiritual power had dried up. He was upset that his spiritual power had dried up at such an important moment. Looking at the bronze bracelet on his hand, he begged him to hold on a little longer. In the same instant, Yin Yin felt full of strength again, and a golden energy enveloped him. Yin Yin rushed towards the pig, and using a feather attack, he hit several feathers into the pig's eyes. Looking at the pig's confusion, Lin Yuan informed that Smart should now enter the battle. Interrupting his further words, Smart was already rushing into the fight, bouncing off Yin Yin's released feathers. He asked that the guy not to worry, after all, his name was Smart for a reason. Therefore, Smart knew exactly what was needed to attack the pig. While the pig was disoriented, Smart released his claws and struck the pig's nose several times with his claws. The pig then shook violently, and Smart flew off to the side. He was dizzy and disoriented, but wondered to the guy if they had managed to win. The guy assured him that they had won and that they were incredible and had done well. At the same moment, Lin Yuan started to fall down as he lost consciousness. Smart and Yin Yin were very scared seeing the guy in such a state. After a while, the wounded and enraged pig was running at full speed. The pig suddenly stopped in front of a man and a woman. The man admitted that he felt that something strange was happening. He couldn't understand where the armor pig could even come from in this place. The woman, however, took a closer look at the pig and was surprised. She noticed that there were bird feathers sticking out of the pig. The woman immediately assumed that they were most likely feathers from a bird that Lin Yuan had. The woman sadly asked Old Man Li to handle the situation by himself. She wanted to hurry up and find the guy as soon as possible. The old man agreed to her request. His eyes suddenly turned devilish. The old man summoned his pet and then apologized to his old friend for bothering him. Soon, Lin Yuan finally opened his eyes. However, he was actually still unconscious. He was a little surprised that he was once again in this strange place. It had been an unknown amount of time since he had first seen this space in his dream. Looking at the giant bronze bracelet, the guy stated that even though it was too late to say such a thing, he would still like to thank the bracelet for sharing his spiritual power with him at a critical moment. Looking around, the guy noticed that the whole place had an area of about 40 or 50 square meters. He even speculated that perhaps this inner space was the so-called inner space of the spiritual beast. Looking at the bronze bracelet on his arm, the guy wondered if this was the bracelet's ability. Looking at the bracelet, he noticed that the bracelet was called Mobius. Then he saw the rest of the information about the beast. Spirit beast species, unknown. Spirit beast level, ordinary grade, level 1. Spirit beast, quality, ordinary quality, spirit beast. Affinity, space, mystery. Skills, true data. Turns all complex things into data. Within the data may lie truths not discernible on the surface. Calm heart, passive skill, strengthens with the spirit beast's level, calms the mind, with some chance of resisting negative statuses. He remembered that he had already seen true data skill being used, so now he wondered if he could develop calm heart skill if he helped Yin Yin practice singing. Suddenly, he noticed that Mobius also had a unique trait. The guy was surprised, since the unique trait only appeared in beasts that were at bronze level, but had a unique trait already at normal level. He even began to wonder if it might be one of those divine treasures or a fantasy species. Unique trait. Spirit lock. 1. Mobius space can nurture spiritual beings. 2. The starting level of a spirit beast being nurtured in Mobius space cannot exceed the level of Mobius itself. 3rd, Mobius himself cannot raise his level in the normal way. His level will increase as the level of the spirit beings he nurtures increases. At the same time, he can gain the initial skills of the spirit creatures he is raising, but Mobius himself does not gain new skills as he raises his level. 4th, each time Mobius levels up, the number of spirit creatures he can raise increases by 1. The way Mobius increases his level remains the same. However, after reading the information, the guy found a weakness in this plan. Right now, he could only contract ordinary spirit beasts of the 1st level, which meant he needed to nurture them first before Mobius could level up. If he wanted to make another contract, he needed to nurture a level 1 spirit beast to evolution. That was level 10. Cultivating low-level spirit beasts was already costly, and under these conditions, even with a fortune, one could instantly go bankrupt. Besides, the guy was already poor and didn't have any fortune. Nevertheless, shaking his head, as if pushing away all negative thoughts, he decided that the current state of affairs was still better than getting nothing. At least now he could feel the spiritual power. Therefore, he felt that he now had hope that his future could change. Suddenly, he heard a woman's voice. The woman was asking the doctor why the guy was not regaining consciousness, although the doctor said that the guy was only suffering from nervous shock and symptoms of weakness. The woman was worried because the guy hadn't regained consciousness for half a day. The guy recognized the woman's voice. It was Aunt Zhang. So after looking at his right hand, the guy decided that it was time for him to leave this strange place. After a moment, he opened his eyes. In the same second, he found that Smart and Yin Yin were trying to bring him to his senses and were very worried about his life. Lin Yuan crouched down and petted the cat. He informed them that he was fine. The guy noticed that Smart was so worried about him that he couldn't even speak properly. At that moment, Aunt Zhang and a doctor entered the hospital room. The doctor pointed out that Aunt Zhang was very worried about the guy, so in order to avoid any trouble, the doctor wanted to examine the guy. Lin Yuan reassured Aunt Zhang and the doctor that there was no need to do so. However, Aunt Zhang was very worried about him because he had been unconscious for almost 10 hours. She felt that if the guy was sick, he needed to be treated. Besides, she reminded him that a mild illness could turn into a severe one. After listening to her advice, the guy went back to bed. At that time, he also decided that even if Old Man Li and Aunt Zhang took care of him, he didn't want to tell them about Mobius yet. After that, the doctor summoned his spirit beast. The guy immediately began to consider the doctor's summoned beast, as he could finally feel the spiritual power. The doctor summoned a clear pond carp. Spirit beast species, carp family, carp genius. Level elite grade, level 4. Affinity water, quality ordinary quality. Skills, tail strike, jumps up and lashes with tail, scale. Cleanse, slightly heals mental wounds, can ease abnormal mental states. The guy was delighted because Clear Pond Carp was truly worthy of elite level in his opinion, as it had an incredibly rare skill. After a moment, the doctor informed the guy that he had no problems. He then informed that it was time for him to go, as his wife was expecting him home for dinner. The woman thanked the doctor for his help and that he had calmed her fears. At that moment, a spirit beast appeared in the doorway of the room with dinner. Aunt Zhang held out the food to the guy. She confessed that Uncle Li had prepared this food especially for him, and that Old Man Li had endeavored to prepare a nutritious dinner for the guy. However, if the guy can choose not to eat this food if he doesn't want to, they overestimate the poor guy's ability to refuse food. The guy said with a smile on his face that he could hardly refuse the food that was prepared especially for him. Yin Yin was delighted by the smell when the guy opened the food. Smart was also enthusiastic when he saw the pork stew in there. The rabbit at this time sat down on Aunt Zhang's legs, who was stroking it with her hand. After paying attention to the rabbit, the guy remembered that Uncle Li's rabbit had always been quite mysterious, and it wasn't as agile as other rabbits. Therefore, he decided to take a look at the information about the rabbit. However, he couldn't get any information about the rabbit because all the information about the rabbit had question marks. The guy was even surprised when he saw the rabbit information had question marks all over it. However, he did get the information that the rabbit had two unique traits. In addition, he realized that the rabbit in front of him was not the terror rabbit as he had thought before. The journey of a guy named Lin Yuan into a world completely new to him is just beginning. Since the age of 8, he had lived the life of a complete failure. What's more, there was no light at the end of the tunnel in his life. He was lonely, his family situation was dire, and his shop was unprofitable. In a world full of spiritual beings, he felt no spiritual power at all. In short, the guy lived the life of a typical loser. The only thing he had were two beasts, Smart and Yin Yin, who were kind to him, just as he was to them. With the awakening of a bronze bracelet named Mobius, the guy's future became less bleak than before, and he and his spiritual beasts found at least a small glimmer of hope for a bright future. Soon Lin Yuan was making desperate attempts to increase his endurance, so he tried to train by running. In the end, he soon stopped as he was extremely tired. The guy was trying to catch his breath after jogging. Since he was released from the hospital, he had been running for 1 hour every day. But he still felt that the intensity of the workout was still too high for him. After all, without the spiritual energy that had been strengthening his body since childhood, it seemed like he should have given up on martial professions and tried to focus and consider the options of peaceful professions. Just at this moment, Aunt Zhang and Uncle Li greeted him. Uncle Li cheerfully pointed out that the guy had been practicing since early in the morning. All sweaty, the guy tried to show off his right biceps, explaining that he wanted to become healthy and strong. Looking at Uncle Li's legs, the guy could now clearly see what the man's problem was. Name: tarsal necrosis. Source: necrotic bone threadworm. Grade: platinum tier and above. Effect: biological toxin mixed with a spiritual curse. After necrotic bone threadworm penetrates flesh and blood, it sacrifices itself to form tarsal necrosis. Uncle Li was infected with such a powerful toxin in the calf of his leg, and quite some time ago. Therefore, the guy thought about the fact that he should most likely be at least king level. He thought that if the situation was as bad as he saw, it meant that Terror Rabbit might be as seriously injured as Uncle Li. The guy wondered if he had taken this form to recover. Terror Rabbit seemed like an incredibly secretive beast to him. As they were about to leave, Uncle Li reminded him to remember to call them if anything happened. If Chu-Chi needed to pay any bills, the guy shouldn't handle everything by himself, but ask for their help. The guy politely thanked his uncle and aunt, asking them not to worry about anything. Uncle Li had always taken care of him and Chu-Chi. Therefore, the guy pondered whether there was a way to cure his uncle. With his new abilities, he wondered if he could cure Uncle Li himself. After seeing his uncle and aunt off, the guy returned to his store. Turning to the plant in front of him, he was greatly surprised. In front of him was green vine, Qing Luo. Species: Aracea philodendron. Grade: normal tier. Level 3. Type: grass. Quality: elite quality. The guy was very surprised that the plant now had an elite quality, as it had a normal quality yesterday. He didn't understand how the plant could have changed so drastically. Seeing the transformation of the plant, the guy thought that perhaps his spiritual energy wasn't being dissipated at all, but rather absorbed by the spiritual beings so that they could evolve. After approaching the green vine, the guy decided that it was time to enhance hard and straight away, so that the plant would evolve into a healing type, Lily. Green vine is the lowest level spirit creature, essentially equivalent to an ordinary plant that is mostly used as food. After a moment, the plant in front of him shimmered with a bright light, and was now glistening. The plant in front of him was now a lily plant. Species: Crassulaceae ionium. Grade: elite tier level 1. Type: wood. Quality: normal quality. Skills: healing, recovers external wounds. Fragrance: a faint, fresh herbal scent that soothes nervous tension. Lin Yuan was incredibly excited as his assumption worked, and he obtained an elite level lily. With the use of this skill, the value of the plant increased by at least 10 times. Running up to the stairs, he shouted for Smart and Yin Yin to stop sleeping and come to him to see what he had accomplished. At the same instant, Smart and Yin Yin appeared beside him. An overjoyed Yin Yin bragged to the guy that he had finally managed to level up. Smart was also happy about raising his level. Smart was all shiny, presenting his changes to the boy. Name, Beishun beast. Species, feline, smart cat. Grade, normal tier level 2. Type, spirit. Quality, normal quality. Skills, precise memory. When memorizing information, it can accurately remember every minute detail. Smart boasted that while he could only memorize one portion of pork stew before, he could now memorize 30 portions. Yin Yin wasn't so simple either. Name, Soundbird. Species, Bluefinch Chotch Kingfisher. Grade, normal tier level 3. Type, sound. Quality, normal quality. Yin Yin felt that after his level increased, his singing became much better. The guy grabbed Smart and hugged him. At this moment, yuan money signs appeared in his eyes. Guy was incredibly excited, admitting to his pets that he had discovered a cheater ability in his arsenal, and so they would soon get rich. Yin Yin, who was standing nearby, tried to understand what kind of ability Lin Yuan was talking about. However, in the same instant, the guy was struck by lightning. He realized that his new ability opened up a much more meaningful path for him than just the path to wealth. The evolution of spiritual beings is incredibly difficult. Except for the very few beings who have evolved naturally and possess spiritual abilities, most require the Creator to consume large amounts of valuable materials and spiritual herbs. Only then would a spiritual being who had reached a critical level have a chance to evolve. However, the guy relied solely on himself, using only his ability. His face covered in cold sweat as he thought about the fact that his frightening method would definitely attract countless people who would want to use it. One wrong move, and he could become that big closet that was falling down loudly. Therefore, Lin Yuan has made the decision that as long as he is unable to protect himself, then he cannot tell everyone about his ability, putting his and others' lives at risk. In order to use his abilities safely, he will have to become a creator. So use this profession as a cover for his long-term success. Otherwise, he would inevitably bring trouble upon himself. At this moment, Yin Yin called out to him. Yin Yin flew holding the guy's phone in his claws. Smart pointed out to the guy that the phone was ringing and that Chu Chi was calling. The guy thanked them. Only now did he remember that if he counted the days, Chu Chi would soon have to make a contract with the first spiritual being. Answering the call, he wondered with a slight smile if Chu Chi was calling him. His sister admitted that she hadn't called him for a few days, so she wanted to know how he was feeling. Lin Yuan was in high spirits, told his sister that his health was better, that he even planned to tidy up the backyard today. Suddenly, she was sharply surprised at what her brother had said. She was indignant, noting that since he was not feeling spiritual energy, he was unlikely to be up to the task of tidying up the backyard. His sister told him to forget about cleaning up the backyard and that they would discuss the problem some more when she got home. However, Lin Yuan had already become so cool that he began to change his sister's mind, pointing out that he had only planned just a little cleaning in the backyard. He asked his sister not to worry, stating that he was not that weak. Her brother even reminded her to remember their agreement. He believed that she should study hard at school and not waste her talent. In the end, her sister agreed with him that she remembered their agreement. Finishing the call, she looked up as if she was praying. She wanted at all costs not to let her brother down. Meanwhile, Chu Chi's school day continued. The teacher was telling the students that in the next 2 days they would make a pact with their first spirit being. The woman kept emphasizing over and over again that this was one of the most important days for the students. The teacher reminded the students that while the quality and level of the spirit being is crucial, the level of the owner utilizing the spiritual energy also affects the unleashing of the beast's martial power. The interactions between different martial classes vary greatly. If a spirit beast does not match the personal preferences of a particular student, it will be very difficult for the student to make a successful contract with that spirit beast. In addition, if such a problem were to occur, the student might even suffer mental damage. The teacher continued to explain to the students, noting that even mundane professions such as a craftsman or weaver required long practice and understanding of spirit beings to learn how to combine spirit materials. In addition, the teacher added that their training class was more focused on preparing combat professionals. So choosing the right spirit beast required much more careful thought on the part of the students. Finally, the class came to an end, and the students began to leave the room. Chu Chi was about to leave like the other students, but the teacher asked her to stay. The teacher was very unhappy with the spiritual beast she had chosen. She asked the girl to think carefully about her future. Besides, the teacher was well aware of the girl's family situation. The teacher was not a bad or arrogant person, but rather wanted to help the girl. After all, the girl's fate depended on this choice. The woman thought that Chu Chi was exceptional, and since the selection of 100 successors to the Federation was approaching, the teacher believed that the girl should not miss the opportunity. However, the girl from a poor family, where her brother's health was poor, did not know what to say to her teacher. Meanwhile, Lin Yuan did not sit idle, but worked hard. He was so happy that he had managed to upgrade 3 more lilies to elite tier. The guy was delighted, as he understood that all this was worth at least 20,000 federal coins, which meant he now had hope of buying a high-level spirit beast so that his sister Chu Chi could sign a contract with it. At this moment, his phone rang. The guy was initially surprised that someone from an unfamiliar number was calling him, but then he thought it was a buyer calling him and that the buyer's call was incredibly timely. After answering the phone, the guy tried to find out who was calling him. However, an angry voice came out of the receiver. The teacher refused to give up and decided to contact him. She inquired if he was Chu Chi's guardian. Without even hearing the guy's reply confirmed, she began to notify him that he should know that Chu Chi had chosen Grey Beetle for herself. The woman believed that Chu Chi had an incredible talent that couldn't be squandered so easily. Lin Yuan was surprised that his sister had decided to make a contract with Grey Beetle. Grey Beetle is a normal-level spirit creature that can be bought for 200 coins, and it's also extremely aggressive, with a useless skill. No one would want to make a contract with it. It could only serve as fodder for high-level insect-eating creatures. The teacher explained to him that Chu Chi's ability range extended to all defensive-type spirit beasts. She pointed out that such a quality was incredibly rare, even in the entire Zijing city. Ideally, the teacher would want Chu Chi's parents to train an elite defensive-type spirit beast for her first contract. The guy's mood abruptly changed from joyful to anxious. He thanked the teacher for informing him about the incident, and then he promised that he would definitely deliver a suitable spirit being for Chu Chi in these 2 days. Finishing the call with the teacher, he was well aware that the elite-tier spirit beast would cost at least 100,000 federal coins. Looking at the plant in front of him, he realized that the time to accomplish the goal was extremely limited. He needed to turn all these normal-tier green vine into elite-tier ones, and then exchange them for a high-end protective spirit beast for Chu Chi. It's a pity that in life you can't solve the issue of finances so easily, where the only option will be either to borrow money from friends or acquaintances, or to take out a loan, and it is not a fact that this amount may be enough. Moreover, this way you get into huge debts from which it is hard to get out later. The next morning, Lin Yuan walked out of the house with a look on his face and body as if he wanted to show everyone that he had been squeezed dry like a lemon. He began to complain that he had been practicing his spiritual energy transmission all night and was incredibly tired as a result. But in the end, he still managed to get everything he needed done. The spiritual goods market was full of all sorts of goods, so he pulled up the hood of his jacket, wanting not to stand out. Lin Yuan inquired if Smart definitely wanted to go along with him today. Smart believed that the guy would no longer be able to deceive him with words that Smart should stay at home to guard the house. Plus, he reminded him that being able to bargain was one of Bai Chun Beast's duties. With a slight sigh of disappointment, the guy noticed that after evolution, children become stubborn and disobedient. Just at that moment, a vehicle, which the driver called a bus, began to approach them. The driver asked passengers to wait behind the yellow line. Smart was surprised that this vehicle was called a bus because he had seen another bus. Lin Yuan corrected him by explaining that Smart had read about buses in a history book, not in a guide to modern transportation. As it turned out, 100 years after the recovery of spiritual energy, various spiritual beings had long since replaced some of the iron mechanisms. As soon as they got on the bus, the driver announced that the bus was going. However, Smart did not know how fast a modern bus travels, so he almost flew out the window. The driver asked if the guy was going to the spiritual market. He said that today was the best time. Lin Yuan tried to find out why the driver thought so and if there were any new spiritual beings in the market. The driver was surprised that the guy hadn't seen the latest news. Nevertheless, he told the guy that a spatial rift had opened 30 miles away from Jia County. It took the Zijing guards 2 days to surround and destroy the swarm of alien insects that had escaped from the spatial rift and bring the situation under control. The driver had even heard the information that there were still 3 squads of Zijing guardians remaining at a post nearby and keeping watch. The guy was a bit surprised when he heard such information. The driver also told him that a spatial rift had opened up near the spiritual beast breeding base. The spirit beings were dying and being injured, and the few employees who escaped were selling the injured spirit beings right on the market. Even Smart has now finally figured out how the armor pig that attacked them recently escaped. The driver reported that there were a particularly large number of escaped armor pigs. He even boasted that he had managed to catch 1 armor pig yesterday as well. When the armor pig dish was served yesterday, the entire village went crazy, fighting over every piece of armor pig. The remaining meat was hung up to make jerky. Guy complimented the driver on the fascinating story and then asked the driver to stop the bus near the tents. The guy was delighted with the driver's information, as the price of severely wounded and maimed spirit beings would surely be low and he could catch a fortune. Strange that it's called a bus when it's basically a taxi. Lin Yuan's adventures continue, and his plan to sell the plants and buy an expensive elite-tier spirit beast sounds rather dubious in his ideas of not attracting unnecessary attention from anyone. And that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you would like to see a sequel, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your wishes in the comments. You can also subscribe to Telegram to know about new videos. Bye everybody.